don't mean to, I don't mean to be judgmental. I feel like a lot of people feel like they know. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people feel that they know, um, but they just don't know enough to realize that they don't know, right? And I know I've said that, quite a few times. And the basis of that is, most people feel a good feeling, right, when they pray or when they read the scriptures. And, we all accept confirmation bias, anchoring bias, placebo effect, all these things, sunk cost fallacy, all these, we accept all these psychological truths, but not for me, right? But what I have is really true. So I don't know. I there's a part of me that feels like everybody is, a lot of people up there are genuine, but there are a lot of people who are not, right? And Zach and Spencer just shared two really great stories, and I think it kind of goes back to where does the motivation lie? Is it intrinsic or extrinsic motivation? And I think younger people and people who are less educated have an extrinsic motivation where they want respect from other people and want to be trusted as someone higher in the social hierarchy or the religious hierarchy. And I know my mother, who does quite a bit of research on this stuff, she talks about, I think it's called moral credits, right? The subconscious place where people put their status in their minds of where they lie. So I do think, in terms of the shame conversation, the way that people, whether it's through the atonement of Jesus Christ or whether for me it's the study of psychology and sociology and just understanding how the human mind works and what it drives it, I think at the end of the day, when we transfer from extrinsic motivators and, being driven by being seen as respected in the community or in the, the religious institution, to more intrinsic motivators inside of ourselves and understanding, the personal innermost desires that are really don't affect people outside of us, but really just us ourselves. I think that's the trigger that helps people avoid the shame.
Awesome. So. Zach, I'd like you to give us some rounding off thoughts here. We're kind of closing up, and then Jordan, go ahead and hit us with some of your wisdom as well after Zach.
Man, I don't know. I might have.
Do you want to bear your testimony?
All of my thoughts. I'm just trying to think on. I understand the skepticism, especially from Brian's perspective, and I've had similar thoughts when you listen to maybe the reasoning of why people believe certain things. Even as a fellow believer, you hear somebody give a reason, I'm like, and even inside, I'm like, I don't know if that's like, the best connection as to why you believe that, but whatever. I think that it's also important to acknowledge that, we don't know what's going on inside another person.
Yeah.
We can guess at best. And I also think that as long as we're behaving in a social context, I think, like Brian said, having a more intrinsic motivation to do your part as part of a collective experience. I think that as long as you're interacting with other people, I think extrinsic motivation plays its part. And I don't think that ever goes away as long as you're with people. And I feel like I'm just saying that, and it's a vague thing because I haven't, again, formulated it really, and I don't know why I'm going that direction here at the end. But I do think that there is this really kind of infinite universal balance between what's going on inside and what's going on with people around you, and how both are important. Sorry, I think that's it for me today, guys.
Yeah, wonderful. Jordan, did you have any
You're
closing
wrong,
thoughts you wanted to end with?
You are wrong.
I might be wrong too. I do have something. I think this is actually a good parallel example. to portray my point. Going back a little bit to the marriage question, or the idea of marriage, I oftentimes, and I think this is a big reason why I'm still single, other than the obvious that I'm balding. No, I think a big reason I still might be single is that I tend to question my intentions, and I question hardcore whether or not I actually like somebody or not. And oftentimes I find that, and this, I'm tying this in to, that I guess the premise of whether or not we know something, people's testimony, whether or not it's genuine, authentic or not. And sometimes I look at these couples and, before they're married, or even look back on my friends like you guys before you guys were married, and people would say things like, I know I love her, or I know I love him. And my mind, for some reason, is so skeptical of, like, how do you know that? Like, you don't know that you love them. You haven't even put in the sacrifice for them yet. You're in the infatuation honeymoon stage. That's, it's bullcrap. You're going to come to this point a year into your marriage where you realize everything is really difficult, and you just thought it was love because they were sexy. But there is something to the naivete, even if it is naive, that these couples have, that allows them to get to the point where they are forced into an experience. And even if they perhaps were infatuated and thought it was love previously, they get to this point where they've put in enough effort and enough sacrifice that I think that they can say genuinely that they love, and that they know that they love the other person. Now, I'm also not saying that there's couples that don't genuinely love each other, before they get married. And because I think there are. It's more of just like, what I'm trying to say is, perhaps people come out and get to the pulpit and say, I know that the Book of Mormon is true. And it's like, do you really know? But then inevitably, for most people, there comes a time in their life where life gets hard enough where they're going to have to, they're forced into a place where they have to question, do I really know this? And after that crisis, I guess, of faith, I feel like they'll conclude one way or another based off of their desires and their values. And, at that point, they can stay with the church or divorce the church, or maybe just separate for a time. And that's just all part of kind of the segue experience. So those are my 2 cents on that. And as it regards to shame, I just don't think that it's super shameful to necessarily say one way or another, but I think it's a shame to go through your entire life smiling through your teeth and not actually questioning yourself, because I think that's key to conversion. You got to question everything and come to a knowledge through experience for yourself.
Yeah,